Some people live by the motto that you never truly know someone, despite how much you may think you do. Others believe someone will show you who they are right away. The reality is that in many cases, by the time someone reveals their true selves to you, it might just be too late. Unfortunately, for one mother of three, this turned out to be the case. Manijeh Starren had no way of knowing that Joe would be the last person she ever dated, and that his would be the last face she ever saw. Join us as we take a look at a case from Minnesota that has more to it than appears on the surface. In fact, solving this case might just lead to solving another that wasn't even on police's radar. Welcome back to Cold Case Diaries, where we shed light on mysterious cases from around the world. Today we will be looking at the heartbreaking case of Manijeh Starren, a devastating case of a young mother taken too soon. But first, if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel and don't forget to like and click the bell icon as it inspires us to create more intriguing content for you. Now, without any further delay, let's dive right in. St. Paul, Minnesota is known for many different things depending on who you ask. Some might know it as the capital and political seat of Minnesota, others might refer to it as one of the infamous Twin Cities. Most people probably know it for its freezing and snow-covered winters. St. Paul is situated on the east side of the Mississippi River, while Minneapolis, the other twin city, is located mostly on the west side of the river. Despite the somewhat harsh weather, St. Paul is still a cultural hub. Every winter the city hosts a carnival, which includes an ice sculpting competition, treasure hunt, ice palace, and more. Residents here find plenty to do, including enjoying the beautiful scenery, whether or not it is covered in snow. In fact, St. Paul is ranked as the 35th best city overall to live in the US. Despite being such an idyllic place to live, St. Paul still has its share of crime, which is unfortunately where our story takes us today. Manijeh Starren was born on May 23, 1989, in Minnesota. Those who knew her well referred to her as Mani. Not much is known about her early years, other than the fact that she grew up in Minnesota in a small but close family. In her adult life, she became a mother to 3 amazing children, and they were her pride and joy. Sources close to her said that her main priority was spending as much time with her children as she could. Aside from that, according to her friends, she was an incredibly kind person to everyone she came across and was overall very patient and positive. Unfortunately, despite all the good in her life, Mani did have some struggles as well. According to her father, Manijeh had been battling with addiction for years, as well as mental health issues. Due to this, it seems her children did not live with her. It is unclear who they stayed with. Despite not living with them, she checked in almost daily with at least someone in her family. Towards the end of April 2023, however, all communication stopped, and no one could get a hold of Manijeh. This was a major red flag for Manijeh's family. Everyone close to her swears that even in her roughest moments, she never went more than a day without contacting someone in her network. In fact, the father of her youngest child stated that Mani would call every 8 hours or so to check in. Once everyone realized how long it had been since they heard from her, they decided to file a missing persons report. Mani's father was the one to call police on May 1, 2023. He informed police that he had last spoken to his daughter on April 18, 2023, nearly 2 weeks prior. He stated that Manijeh did have her struggles with drug addiction and mental health, but that she has been planning on going to a rehabilitation center. However, she never showed up at the facility, which prompted him to contact the police. He also added that the last time he had spoken to her, she seemed paranoid and afraid. Police started their investigation immediately, not wanting to waste any time in fear that leads might grow cold. They got in touch with Mani's youngest child's father, referred to as SS from here on out, who shared with police that she would check in frequently. He also gave them a bit more information that might be relevant. He informed them that Manijeh's wallet had been lost, and in it were her credit cards and EBT card. While she had not reported the wallet stolen, he let police know that according to her online account, there was evidence that someone was using her EBT card. On the surface, it may seem confusing as to why Mani didn't report her wallet as stolen. It's possible that she knew who had it, or simply did not want to be involved with the police given her history of addiction. The latter possibility will come into play later as well. Based on the account of both Mani's father and SS, police decided to move forward with their investigation as worry grew that this might not be a simple missing persons case. On May 25th, they obtained a search warrant for her apartment building, the Parkway, which included the surveillance camera located just outside of her door. It is unclear why the police waited so long, over 3 weeks, before searching her apartment. However, the search would be worth it. Both what they found in the apartment, as well as on the camera, solidified the idea that Manijeh's case might be more severe than a missing persons case. Inside the apartment, police found clear signs of a struggle. There was a window screen on the floor, a TV with a cracked screen, and a broken microwave. Worse still, inside the bedroom, Mani's sheet had been partially removed, and there was a giant hole cut out of the foam pad on top of the mattress. There were also red stains at the foot of the bed that appeared to be blood. If all of that was not enough to confirm police's suspicions of foul play, then what they found in the living room certainly was. There was blood all over the couch and floor, as well as some more in the kitchen. Based on the amount and pattern of the blood, police concluded that someone had been severely injured or killed in the apartment. Crime scene technicians took samples of blood from all around the apartment. Further testing showed that the blood did in fact belong to Manijeh. Despite the mess of a scene that they had walked in on, investigators found evidence that someone had made an attempt to clean up. The areas with blood on them appeared smeared or soaked up. It was obvious that someone had returned to the scene of the crime, possibly on more than one occasion, but eventually abandoned their attempt at a cover-up. It was also clear to police that Mani's physical safety was at stake, and though they hoped they would still be able to find her alive, with the amount of blood at the scene, they couldn't be sure. The first step in finding her was trying to pin down exactly when she was last seen. They knew it could be anywhere between April 18th and May 1st, but it was essential that they narrowed that window down as much as they could. To accomplish this, they had the property manager show them the camera footage. After scrolling through days' worth of footage, they confirmed that the last sighting of Manijeh Starren was on April 21st at around 6 p.m. Mani can be seen running from her apartment, being chased by a man. He grabs her, spins her around, and takes her back inside the apartment. This is the last time that she is ever seen on the camera, and police would later learn that this would be the last sighting of her alive. So, who was this man seen chasing Mani on the footage? Police asked the property manager if he recognized the man. He said that he only knew him by Joe and that he and Mani had been spending a lot of time together, though Joe's name was not on the lease. He did happen to have Joe's phone number, which he promptly gave to police. After running the number, police confirmed that the man on the tape was 40-year-old Joseph Jorgensen. I want to take a minute to note an important issue that will come up throughout the case. Some sources state that Joe and Mani were a couple at the time of her disappearance. Her family, however, want to stress to everyone that while the two may have started out in a relationship, Mani did not want it to continue. According to sources close to her, Mani felt used and threatened by Joe. Given this, Despite the fact that some sources refer to them as a couple, I will refrain from doing so. Based on the security footage, police identified Joe as a person of interest and began asking around about him. According to SS, during one of his calls with Mani, she stated that Joe had pulled a rope around her neck and threatened her. SS reports that this call occurred on April 21st, the last day Mani was seen, but she hadn't mentioned when the incident occurred. SS states that he was under the impression it had occurred weeks earlier, but he couldn't be sure. Considering her recent disappearance, this piece of information definitely establishes a pattern, but unfortunately not a timeline. One neighbor told police that she had seen Mani walking around with a black eye and red marks. She had asked Mani if Joe was responsible, and she had said yes. The neighbor offered to call the police for her, but Mani asked her not to, saying it would just make things worse. The neighbor believed Manijeh and decided not to call the police. In addition to these statements casting suspicion on Joe, the security footage also held more evidence. During the week after Mani was last seen, Joe can be seen entering the apartment upwards of 20 more times. He is completely alone, and Mani never accompanies him. According to the property manager, Manijeh only had one set of keys that he was aware of. To investigators, this meant that Jorgensen is in possession of the only set of keys to the apartment, not Mani. The last time that Joe is seen on camera, he is hauling 2 duffel bags and a suitcase into a pickup truck before climbing into the passenger seat. Some neighbors had reportedly seen Joe on this day and made comments that it looked like he was hauling a dead body. While this was suspicious, at the time, Mani had not yet been reported missing, which might explain why no one called police upon seeing this. The camera shows him leaving with the duffel bags on April 28th. According to the remaining footage, he never returns. Police ran the plates of the truck that Joe got into, but they were registered to someone else, who remains unnamed. According to the registry, this person lived in a different apartment complex named Century Ridge Apartments. Century Ridge was just 11 minutes away from Mani's apartment complex. This person was clearly involved in some way. Police were still more focused on Jorgensen. While the police continued their investigation, Manijeh's family held on to hope that they would still find her alive. They were leading efforts of their own by asking everyone to share any information they had. They also led a campaign by putting purple lights on their front porch and posting them to Facebook. This is something people often do to spread awareness of domestic violence. At this point, it is clear that Manijeh's family believed Jorgensen was to blame as well. After the search of Mani's apartment, police decided to pursue Jorgensen as a suspect. Their first step was to obtain a search warrant for his cell phone and Facebook account. While searching through Jorgensen's account, they noticed that he had sent several threatening messages to Mani. I'm going to read them as they appear in the reports, but they might be a little difficult to understand. On April 5th, 2023, Jorgensen sent a message that said, "You owe me 2 BSU, called the cops on me 2 times. Very clear, I was of that being punishable of hanging. I'm giving you this plea bargain opportunity. So YW." According to this message, Mani had called the cops on Jorgensen twice before, and he was threatening to hang her for it. In a later message, he also said, "Hope you die of a kidney infection. Terrible, mother." These messages were disturbing to both police and family. It solidified the idea that Jorgensen had been abusing Mani and that she had every reason to fear for her life. In any investigation of a missing person, death threats are taken incredibly seriously. These messages were just one brick in the wall of evidence slowly forming against Jorgensen. His search history was no less incriminating. On the day that Mani was last seen, Jorgensen had Googled jugular. In the days following, he also looked up: what do police do with a missing persons report? How to clear cookies from an Android phone, how to remove GPS Lime scooter, and Lime for soil. This last entry, dated June 4, 2023, is particularly damning, as Lime is known to aid in the decomposition process, as well as to help cover the scent of decomposition. Given the date of the search, it is possible that Jorgensen was starting to believe police were onto him after searching Manijeh's apartment. His other search, regarding the scooter, is also troublesome. There is no mention of Jorgensen owning a car, and it is likely that he didn't, given that someone else is seen picking him up from Manny's apartment. It is possible that he was traveling around via a Lime scooter. For those unfamiliar with the company, Lime provides various methods of transportation that can be used by the public for a price. Customers pick up a scooter in one location, use it to get to another, and drop it off at a designated spot. Many major metropolitan areas have similar services. It is possible at the time of the search, Jorgensen wanted to be able to move without being tracked. It is unclear whether he rented a Lime scooter or not. Regardless of his intention to find an untrackable travel method, as long as he had his cell phone on him, it did not matter. The sources do not state whether or not Jorgensen knew his phone was being tracked. It is likely that he didn't. Among other bits of evidence, access to tracking, his phone also revealed that Jorgensen lived at the Century Ridge Apartments, the same place as the person who drove the truck. Next, investigators obtained access to Manny's EBT account and tracked any transactions that happened after she was last seen on April 21st. Between May 9th and May 11th, Jorgensen used Manny's EBT card 4 times. Police were able to link these transactions to him through security footage. He can be seen in the videos wearing the same hat he had on when he left her apartment, a Minnesota Twins hat. Not only was the act of using her EBT card for these transactions incriminating to police, but the items he bought at the stores were as well. Jorgensen purchased a cleaning bucket, saran wrap, paper towels, garbage bags, liquid cleaner, latex gloves, as well as numerous other cleaning products. He made these purchases first on May 9th and then purchased similar items again on May 11th. In one case, he used the EBT card to pull money from an ATM, and in another, he bought himself food. On top of everything mentioned already, there were a few other factors at play that investigators were aware of. For starters, Jorgensen had never reported Manny missing, despite the fact that they were in a relationship. Under normal circumstances, police would expect a partner to be concerned if their loved one were to disappear. Typically, it is a red flag if they do not take part in the search efforts. Later, a friend close to Jorgensen stated that when he asked about Manny, Jorgensen said she had checked into a mental health program. This same friend had been questioned by police as well, as he was caught on camera using the EBT card. According to investigators, though, he was released because Jorgensen had told him that Manijeh had given him permission to use the card while she was away. While speaking with friends and family, police also learned that a family friend had been in contact with Jorgensen briefly after Manny's disappearance. According to this friend, Jorgensen claimed that Manny had left for the store and never returned, and now he didn't know where she was. He was worried, however, that some creep named Cosell had hurt her. Supposedly, Jorgensen then said that's why he was looking in the woods for her. It is unclear if anything came of that tip, or if police followed up on Cosell. The friend reportedly never spoke to Jorgensen again. After gathering all the evidence, on June 26th, a little over a month since they had searched Manny's apartment and 2 months since she had last been seen, police obtained a warrant for Jorgensen's apartment. From the perspective of the family, this had been a dreadfully long 2 months, with no promise of a swift conclusion. However, from the perspective of other cases, the police moved with surprising speed. While investigators had some hope that Jorgensen would cooperate with them, they prepared for him to put up a fight. The SWAT team was called in to aid in entering the apartment. They had to break the door in, as Jorgensen refused to open it for them. Once inside, they came upon a disturbing scene. The apartment smelt horribly, and Jorgensen appeared to be attempting to light it on fire. When officers tried to stop him, he fought back. A struggle ensued for quite some time, with Jorgensen attempting to disarm the officers. He managed to injure 2 of them, though they were not fatally harmed. Finally, they were able to cuff him, put out the fire, and fully assess the scene. They found that in the apartment was Jorgensen's roommate, to whom the truck was registered. Given that it seemed like he had some level of participation in whatever occurred, he was taken in for questioning as well. There was another person in the apartment, a woman. She had scratches all over her and red marks. She told the police that Jorgensen had threatened her and told her that the neighbors won't be able to hear you scream. Police identified her as someone Jorgensen had also messaged on Facebook. She was not taken in for questioning. The police also identified the source of the smell as a closet whose carpet was soaked in blood. The padding underneath the carpet was also soaked and had signs of maggots. This was the closet that Jorgensen had been attempting to set on fire, presumably to destroy evidence. Luckily, though, they had been able to put out the fire before any serious damage had been done. It is unclear if this blood was ever identified as Manijeh's. While at the apartment complex, police also spoke with the property manager. They learned that around mid-May, tenants had started complaining of a horrible smell coming from Jorgensen's apartment. It got so bad that the property manager had demanded access to the unit to determine the source of the smell. Apparently, when the manager tried to enter Jorgensen's bedroom, where the smell was emanating from, Jorgensen got aggressive and denied entry. Shortly thereafter, Jorgensen was again spotted lugging duffel bags from his apartment. The property manager shared with police that it smelled like something had died in the unit Jorgensen lived in. The search of the apartment turned up other evidence as well, specifically 2 padlock keys. Police took the keys in as evidence, believing it would be useful later, and they were right. The existence of the padlock keys connected to other location data from Jorgensen's phone. It had showed him visiting an storage unit on May 18th, the same day that the property manager entered the apartment and that Jorgensen was seen removing duffel bags from his apartment. The storage was just 4 minutes away from Jorgensen's apartment. However, when police arrived on site, they feared they might have hit a dead end. There was no unit registered in Jorgensen's name. However, after looking at the full list of renters, investigators noticed there was one. In his roommate's name, logs showed that the same day Jorgensen's phone pinged at the storage, the unit had been accessed with its unique code. Based on this, police obtained a search warrant for the unit. Despite the foul odor emanating from the unit, no one was truly prepared for what they would find inside. The police cut the locks to gain entry. They did some further testing later, though, to confirm that the keys found inside the apartment fit the locks. Inside the unit was a large cooler, a blue duffel bag, and a small suitcase. Some sources refer to the small suitcase as a small cooler. They are used interchangeably in some cases. Also, a green bag full of cleaning supplies, and the duffel bag was identified as one of the ones Jorgensen was seen on camera with. The cleaning supplies are presumed to be the same ones Jorgensen was seen buying. The storage unit was otherwise empty. The coolers and duffel bag was sent to the medical examiner, where everyone's worst fear would be confirmed. Inside the large cooler was a torso. The duffel bag contained 2 arms and 2 legs, and the small cooler contained a head. All the parts of the body had been wrapped in several layers of saran wrap, which had to be delicately removed by the examiner. Despite how much time had passed, the examiner was able to identify the remains via tattoos. In the missing persons report, Manijeh's family stated that she had an angel wing on her stomach, a lifeline on her shoulder, and mountains on her arm. In addition to the tattoos, the medical examiner was able to use dental records to confirm the identity. At last, they had finally found Manijeh Starren. Although her cause of death is still unknown, the medical examiner officially ruled her manner of death a homicide. Back at the St. Paul Police Department, both Jorgensen and his roommate were being held. His roommate claimed that he had no knowledge of Jorgensen's dealings or that he really knew anything about the women he brought home. He claimed that he worked most days and stayed in his room when he was home. When asked why the awful smell of the apartment hadn't bothered him, he stated that due to a brain injury from his youth, he had no sense of smell. This still leaves a few unanswered questions, though. For example, was the roommate completely unaware of what Jorgensen put in his truck that day at the apartment? Was he also completely unaware that Jorgensen had used his name to rent a storage unit? According to some reports, the roommate had known Jorgensen for 30 years, since he was around 10 years old. It is possible that he is completely ignorant of the type of man Jorgensen is, but it does not seem entirely likely. At this moment in time, however, he has not been charged with anything relating to Manny's death. Jorgensen was initially held on charges of arson, threats of violence, and disarming an officer based on what happened when they entered his apartment. This was enough to keep him in the police station while investigators checked the storage unit. After the discovery of Manny's remains, he was also charged with second-degree murder. His bail was set at $5 million, and he is currently awaiting trial. However, that is not quite the end of this twisted story. In May of 2023, when Manny was first reported missing, some news outlets reported that Jo Jorgensen may have something to do with her disappearance. When another Minnesota family saw this, it inspired them to file a missing persons report of their own. Fanta Xayavong was last seen by her family in July of 2021. She was 33 at the time and a mother of 2. When her family contacted the police, they mentioned that the reason they had finally decided to file a report is because Fanta's boyfriend at the time was the last person to see her before she disappeared. This boyfriend was none other than Joseph Jorgensen. So, after hearing about Manny, Fanta's family came forward to report her missing. They also shared with police that before she disappeared, Fanta had hinted at the fact that Jorgensen was abusing her and that she was not happy in the relationship. It is unclear why Fanta's family did not come forward sooner or whether she had been the primary caretaker of her children before she left. However, given what is known about Manijeh and Jorgensen, it is possible that Fanta was in a similar situation. She might have also been struggling with addiction or mental health issues. There is no statement from her family to explain whether it was unusual for her to disappear for long stretches of time. What is known, though, is that at least some of her friends were concerned about her. Fanta was very active on Facebook up until her disappearance in 2021. There are numerous comments on old posts of hers from friends asking her to get in touch. Some were even asking each other if anyone knew how to get into contact with her. Another possible factor that could have played a role in her disappearance going under the radar is COVID-19. The global pandemic had a huge impact on people's ability to communicate and check in on one another. It's possible that it took longer for people to realize Fanta's disappearance might be sinister because of the pandemic. Police took Fanta's missing persons report, but given the amount of time that had passed, there wasn't exactly a hot trail for them to follow. They were also still in the midst of working on Manijeh's case. Early on, though, investigators did suspect that the two disappearances were linked to each other. Once they discovered Manijeh's body, their suspicions grew even stronger, and they became gravely concerned about the fate of Fanta. It is unclear exactly what investigative steps took place after the discovery of Manny's remains. However, it is likely that police used similar methods for Fanta's investigation, specifically looking through Jorgensen's phone data. They were also working off more information now that they knew how he operated. On July 6, 2023, police searched another storage unit linked to Jorgensen in Coon Rapids, Minnesota, roughly 30 minutes away from St. Paul. There, they found more remains, which were later identified as Fanta's. Police have not released details on whether the remains were found in the same state that Manny's were. It may be more difficult for the medical examiner to point to a specific cause of death because of how long the remains were in the storage unit. Given that Jorgensen has yet to be convicted for Manijeh's murder or charged in Fanta's case, there is likely a long road ahead before justice is truly served. From what we do know, though, it appears that both women were victims of domestic violence, taken from their lives too soon. Both women leave behind children who will have to grow up without their mothers and family and friends who loved them deeply. There is currently a GoFundMe for funeral costs for Mani, with any money left over being put aside for her 3 children. Fanta's family also has a GoFundMe to aid in paying for her cremation. Additionally, Mani's family has asked people to wear purple in her honor and pink in Fanta's, as that was her favorite color. As far as Jorgensen is concerned, he is currently only charged with Manijeh's murder, but investigators have not ruled him out for Fanta's murder. It is possible that that is why there have been no updates on his trial. He was originally set to reappear in court on August 21st, but there has been no confirmation that that happened. Another possibility is that there is some type of plea bargain being put in place behind the scenes. The evidence against Jorgensen is staggering. The video camera footage, reports from neighbors and family friends, and his cell phone data are all working against him. Additionally, he was seen purchasing copious amounts of saran wrap, which was found on Manny's remains. Regardless, it may be some time before there is a conclusion to this case and before we learn the details of what truly happened in that apartment. What did you think of today's case? Share your thoughts in the comment section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more captivating true crime stories. Until next time, stay safe and keep your eyes peeled for the next mystery to unfold.